And we know that, obviously they had Laporte who was playing that left centre-back role, and he's had a few injuries during his time at Manchester City. I think Pep Guardiola had periods where he wanted to trust him, but he wasn't able to because of the injuries. And you look there, in terms of his stats, he's up there, and he's with interceptions, clearances, blocks as well, passing accuracy. And I think the passing is probably one of the key stats there, because in terms of the other defenders, you can tell obviously they play for Manchester City, but RB Leipzig is not the same team. So for him to be at the top with that metric means that there's so much more to come for him.
Yeah, you know more than most that Aymeric Laporte might be watching this and wondering why he's not on that graphic, but there is a reason for that.
I appreciate that, Emma. It just hasn't played enough. So it's unfair to obviously compare players' stats when they've played half the games. I think it's a very typical thing to do. So I will apologise on behalf of
just he might be watching.
Of all of us,
he does tend to watch the show. So
on there. But in terms of profiles, that is the sort of profile that I think Pep's trying to sort of maybe change a little bit in bringing in Gvardiol over Laporte, because he does like the right-footed, left-footed centre-back combination.
Yeah. Just a word on the fee, because Manchester City might be sort of secretly happy that he doesn't cost as much as Harry Maguire maybe did at Manchester United, because we said there, £77.6 million. That doesn't include add-ons, of course. We know that Harry Maguire was, British record, 80 million.
Yeah, you can see that he comes in there as second in the Premier League, just above Virgil van Dijk. Obviously, Maguire and Van Dijk both have Premier League experience, so their fees were a bit inflated. But I think they'll be really happy with the fee they've got for this player, and they're paying for a huge amount of potential as well. 21 years old, and Sam was just described him as potentially one of the best centre-backs in world football and what he could become. And I think as well, he's really rare in what he provides, and he's left-footed, he's a really good passer, he can also be more of a traditional defender. And we know that Pep Guardiola has a bit of a habit of playing centre-backs as full-backs, and I think he's got that versatility to his game as well, and he's just a really exciting prospect. And when there is a lot of change and there seems to be a lot of transition at Man City at the moment, bringing in someone who's got Champions League experience, international experience, huge amount of potential at a young age, they'll be really happy with this one, and for a fee that is less than Maguire, which United fans will want to be looking at as well.
I think there's one thing that we've seen with Pep in recent years in terms of where he puts his money into and how much, in terms of the defence. I'm sure there's a stat out there that he spent a lot of money on his defence, and he stressed last season how important it is to get that balance right. And I think we saw from when they switched up their system and saw John Stones coming to his own, and having Walker playing in that right centre-back position as well. And obviously Diaz is obviously incredible, but Ake as well, that's someone that came into the team. People didn't really know whether he was going to be on the fringes, whether he's going to be a starter. So to add Gvardiol to that defence is almost like a cheat code, but it says a lot about how important he is for Pep.
They've all worked out, though, haven't they? The defenders that he has brought in.
Yeah,
maybe a couple of seasons ago you would have said Ake, and then look at what he did last season.
I think also Pep's touched on quite a few times that he now likes his defenders to be able to defend 1v1 duels, because I think because of the way the system sort of that City sort of play when they're attacking, their build-up phase is a 3-2. They're always open to transition. So Adama Traore, you'll remember, or Mbeumo, or every Liverpool forward essentially. And so he's sort of trying to create these 1v1 monsters. Gvardiol's brilliant in wide areas, really good 1v1. Defends in a sort of similar way to Ake, front-footed, wants to sort of win possession, but he's probably one of the best passers in Europe in terms of progressive passes. So you've now not only got this sort of defender who can win duels like your Akes, like Diaz, you've now also got another, I wouldn't say John Stones, but a player who can get the ball and just shift it into wide areas, and suddenly you kind of can miss out the midfield. He's a scary prospect.
It's so funny, though, isn't it? Because people were starting to talk about Man City's squad depth and whether they were losing a few too many players. And then you've just spoken through all those defensive options, and they've just brought another world-class player in. And you're thinking, the squad depth they're going to have going into next season, you cannot imagine a world where they're not challenging for the title again after an unprecedented treble.
Depth,
exactly.
Yeah.
Talking of losing players, we obviously touched on Laporte a minute ago, not being on that graphic. What does this mean for him if Gvardiol does come in?
I think it's been a conversation for a few years now whether he's going to stay at Manchester City, whether he's going to move on. I think now with the fee that they're paying for Gvardiol, it makes sense for him to move on. But he's still an incredible defender. Every time he plays for City, you can see the quality he has in terms of his defensive attributes, but also carrying the ball and passing it forward. But since he has been at City, he has missed 63 games due to injury. And I think, like I said, Pep is the type of manager that relies on his defence and relies on consistency, and that's something that he unfortunately hasn't been able to give. But I think any top top team in the world that is in need for a left-footed centre-back, which most teams, top teams are looking for, I think he would fit in anywhere.
I also think he is genuinely the best ball-playing centre-back in the world, in terms of variations of passes, in terms of being able to hit diagonal balls, in terms of being someone who can bring the ball out from the back. He is genuinely the best. And I think, as you just touched on there, Sam, every team in the world now wants to play with progressive centre-backs. And also, it's really unlucky because at City you get injured and Stones comes in and ends up,
You're just not getting back into the team.
Yeah, and then Diaz at the start of last season, I think, missed 7 or 8 games because they were rotating. So it's a Pep thing as well. Not just,
Don't put him in your fantasy team. You'll be disappointed.
You know we don't. We don't.